My name is Kirk Richards, and my painting is Rescue. As I was creating Rescue, I was thinking about a lot of the hard things that I'd been going through personally and had really filled my mind with despair over the last 5 years or so. And the painting to me is a prayer for divine intervention. A lot of my paintings are prayers for divine intervention or depictions of the heavenly intervening in the lives of us earthly people. And so in this case in particular, it's about me or somebody else in a state of despair and being lifted up out of that into hope. My first sketches of this painting, they depicted an angel lifting up an adult figure, a fully grown figure. And I wrestled with the gestures of the figures. I tried to make the limbs work and be in specific places. I moved them all around to try to find a solution. And the painting didn't really begin to work well until I changed that adult figure into an infant or a young human, and that young human just fit right into the arms of the angel in ways that I hadn't anticipated working so well, and it just felt right. I wondered at the time if it was departing too much from my original concept, but as I thought about it a little bit longer, it felt okay that that young child was representative still of me and of other people who might be in a state of despair. Really, there's a timelessness to our souls that might be depicted as a child, and I was happy with the result. There's something about winged figures and winged torsos that is universal. It connects us to antiquity, but it also feels modern and fresh, and it feels like it's saying something about the soul that crosses cultures. And so when I depict a winged figure, a winged torso, sometimes it's a winged dress, and that ties into my own interest in sewing and apparel, but it is saying something about the human soul and the mystery, but the resiliency and the heavenly quality of the human soul. I think wings are a beautiful shape, but they are also, to me, a symbol of the power of heaven, God's messengers, triumph. And I love seeing those sculptures and paintings that have winged figures. I think before I even set pen to paper to sketch this out, the idea that I had in my head was one that comes from music, and it's a commonly used Latin phrase in masses is Dona eis requiem, or give us rest. And so I was going to call this painting something like that, or maybe give me rest. But as I began to draw the painting and then paint it, and then as I made changes and the figure being rescued became a child, I changed the title, the working title, to Homeward Bound. I've done several paintings along those lines of a child being taken up to heaven. Of course, there are interpretations of that kind of painting where it's about maybe a child that was taken from us prematurely, the death of a young loved one. And that's a possible interpretation of this painting as it stands as well. But in the context of the original body of work that it was created for, which was about peace and about the peace that we can seek as troubled humans, right? I decided to rename the painting Rescue. And that leaves the interpretation open to a lot of possibilities for the viewer. It could be about a child, the death of a child. It could be about heaven's intervention in our human distress, our earthly state. And there are a million reasons why we need heaven to intervene in our lives, right? And so that's what the painting becomes about, and thus the title, Rescue. I loved the process of creating the painting because one of the fun parts for me and also meaningful to the picture was the inclusion of actual dirt. So if you look at the lower part of the painting, you'll see that I threw some dirt in with the paint in the lower part of the painting, and hopefully carefully through archival processes made it so that it will last a very long time. But the combination of the dirt, and you can see pine needles in there. This is actually from my yard outside of my garage where I worked on this painting. But that juxtaposition of dirt, of earth, and then hopefully the light and the atmosphere in the upper part of the painting, it speaks to not only the theme of this art show, but also the creation of God, the elements, and particles that give life in the ground and particles that give life in the sky. And the motion in the painting is indicative of sweeping upward, almost riding or surfing or escaping a swell of the dirt that might cover us, that might bury us, and heading toward the light.